So hello, everyone. My name is Nancy, and I'm so excited to bring you this interview today, where we're going to be exploring the connection between wellness, human connection, and dancing. What prompted this was my longtime friend, and as I like to call her, my salsa mother, Miss Barbara Bernstein, wrote a book, and the book is called Salsa Dancing and Rueda de Casino Guidebook. And she's written this after years of teaching Rueda de Casino in the DC, Maryland, and Virginia areas. And before we continue, I want to introduce our guest. Miss Barbara Bernstein began her career as a math instructor, and she holds a PhD from the University of Maryland School of Education in Human Development. She established a dance company called Danceintime, and Danceintime has been responsible for teaching and training dancers in the DMV area in a particular style of salsa called Rueda. Danceintime is well known in the community for teaching classes, hosting events, and participating in Hispanic heritage celebrations, as well as performing at various dance events throughout the years. Barbara has been an instructor for over 20 years, and she has taught in many events in different cities in DC, New York, Philadelphia, Miami, Puerto Rico, even as far as Dublin, y'all, and many other cities. So I'm so happy to welcome you. It's a pleasure to have you today, Barbara.
Thank you so much. Thank you for such a nice introduction. And I have to tell you that you mentioned to me that you considered me your salsa mother some years ago, and I cannot tell you how touched I was by that. I think that the nicest thing you can call anyone is to compare them to a mother. So,
And I
that,
and I really mean that, Barbara. I think, as I mentioned to you, you were really the person who introduced me to what I call organized dancing, so social dancing and performing, being a part of a team, and so many connections and so many relationships sort of were born out of my time with you and Danceintime. So the name is appropriate. You are my salsa mother.
well, thank you. Thank you so much. I That means a great deal.
So today I want to talk about this book that you have written, and we want to ask you a couple of questions. And so excited to have you here. There's the book on screen. It's called Salsa Dancing and Rueda de Casino Guidebook. And you can find the book on Amazon. We were gonna share the information towards the end. But first, I want to ask you, what inspired your transition from academia, because you were a professor, to becoming a full-time Latin dance instructor? And how did you get into learning Rueda and teaching Rueda de Casino?
The simple one-word answer is love. I always loved music and dancing from very early childhood.
As they say, music inspires everybody, it cures everything. I think we can all trace back our connection to music, and dancing is just like an extension of that.
Yeah.
So, who were your early mentors, and how did they influence your teaching and your learning of this particular style?
So I began formal partnership dancing as a ballroom dance student. And when I was taking those lessons, I learned from a gentleman named Gary Stinson, who's a very outstanding ballroom dancer in the DMV area. And um, he was very hard driving. As soon as I would start to understand something, he just had it down to a science. The instant that I started to wrap my mind around something well, he was saying, and you can also end the move this way and this way and this way. He just kept always at a pace that kept me thinking and was a stretch from the beginning of the lesson to the end of the lesson.
Right.
And I found that even though it was tiring, I learned so much and it was so much fun. When you're dealing with a class, you're pitching to the middle of the class, so you can't
Mhm.
fine tune it the same way.
Right.
But I try to do things so that it's educational and they're stretching themselves just shy of the point where it would feel like too much, so that it remains fun and exciting, but they're also really having to think and so on.
Yes, it's so interesting because I mean, being a fellow instructor, I can definitely relate to what you're saying. When you have a group of people that you're teaching, you don't want to go so slow that, your more advanced or intermediate dancers would get bored, but you don't want to go too fast to cater to the more advanced dancers and kind of miss, half of the class. So it's definitely a balance that one has to have.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I think that judgments like that are really what life is comprised of all the time. What a lot of times I would do, if I had a single class with a very wide range of abilities, I would start slow and sometimes say, now we're going to be doing some more sophisticated moves toward the end, just to make sure that people didn't leave because they were bored. If, they
Yeah.
knew that something was coming, I wasn't ignoring them. And then partway through, at halfway through or wherever I thought was appropriate,
Hmm.
I would say, now we've been working on fundamentals. This has been a review for some of us. So I'm going to now start moving a little faster into things that are more challenging. Those of you that have been learning this and are new to this, just get the most you can out of it. I want you to know I don't expect you to master these things, but pick up what you can. We're going to now cater to the people who are more sophisticated and experienced, because sometimes people come into a class and they don't realize other people have been doing this dance for 5 years and it's their
Right.
first day. And
Yep.
that can be very demoralizing. So it's good
Right.
to give people this perspective.
Yeah, there's definitely a skill in keeping the beginners engaged and not discouraged from learning.
Right,
Definitely.
exactly.
So Gary was many others that were.
Yes, yes. I wanted to make sure I credited Glen, who you've met. So my salsa mentor, Gary was a ballroom teacher, and my salsa mentor was Glen Minto. And Glen was just an amazing dancer. His styling was fabulous. And he was an unusual combination of being equally a very outstanding dancer and a very outstanding teacher.
So I always ask this question. It's interesting because obviously I was active in the dance community for so many years, and then now most recently in the last few years very active in my corporate life, my career. And I always like to ask people that have been doing something for such a long time of particular insights that you have. And in your case, what are some of the biggest lessons that you've learned in teaching movement?
I've come to understand the importance of pace in doing the moves. When you can do something slow,
Mhm.
you can then gradually accelerate the pace and do it fast. But if you try to do something at a faster tempo, it takes longer to learn and it can be more discouraging. In fact, if you think about this, if you were doing something and you took one step every few seconds, so you were stepping step, 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 you could do almost anything.
Mm.
When you've learned a move, it isn't just a matter of do you know the action and the sequence, but at what pace can you do it?
Hey.
And, just patience. I am a fairly lopsided person in my skills. I always had a lot of musical skills, but I've always been very weak on things you do with your hands, like, well, I'm poor at digital things using computers, mechanical things. When I'm working with people that are learning things slowly, I remind myself
Hmm.
that there are things that I learn slowly, and it helps you, I
Hmm.
think, be patient. And
Patience is so important, I think, as a teacher. I can relate to your example because for me, I had to learn English as an adult, right? And
uh,
so I had trouble, and I remember, how much work it took to understand, to get my thoughts together, to have a clear conversation with someone. And I think as teachers, we have to value the desire of students that are there and that are willing to go through the process and receive our instruction. And to me, when I was teaching, that was something precious. And I would always think of how can I break this down in a way that this person can actually get it? Because once they know it, they know it. But I think
Exactly.
it's taking care of the experience of the student through that learning process. So I want to switch gears. I want to show my copy of the book. Here it is,
Hey.
Salsa Dancing and Rueda de Casino Guidebook by Barbara Bernstein. And I want to talk about, in this section, I want to talk about what inspired you to write this book.
When the pandemic came, I lost my hobby, the ability to do my hobby and my job at the same time. And I was
Mhm.
really pretty bereft.
Yeah.
And I always like to use my time productively.
Mhm.
I'm kind of a nut about that. So I thought, well, I'm going to use this time. I've got all these videos to write up the advanced moves and find them where I use them in shows that I had recorded so that I could have a description and then a video of that move. Because I'd done a lot of programs at that point, and
Mhm.
most of the things I knew at one time or another, we had performed. And I was telling one of my sons, I'm writing up all this material on the advanced moves so I don't forget them, to use my time wisely. And then I thought, I'll add to it what I've already written up for students. And my son said, Mom, that's a book. And I thought, yeah, that is a book. And
What a
then
great
I kind of
idea.
got onto some kind of perfectionistic wave where I wanted everything to be really clear and comprehensive and include all this other things that I know besides just moves and so on. And
Mhm.
I kind of drove myself crazy. And a few people said to me, Barbara, you can get it perfect or you can get it done. And I thought, that's also right. And so at some point I cut off, but it's very comprehensive, as anyone who looks at it can see.
Yes. And I love the book because it shows not just the list of moves that you're mentioning, but there's a lot more in this book. There's pictures of all your teams and different events throughout the years. Can you tell us a little bit more about what's in the book besides just the list of moves?
Yes, wait. I really actually tried to think of everything relevant to a dancer. I was talking with a very bright, sophisticated woman about what I do if I'm nursing an injury. Um, and I mentioned that what puts force on your body is the speed at which you're dancing. If you
Mm.
just walk, like at the pace of walking through something, you can really not aggravate an injury sometimes that way. And you can teach quite effectively and just step out when people are dancing up to speed to do the moves. And my friend that I was speaking to, again, I'm not going to mention names, said, Oh, I never thought of that. And I thought, Oh, I thought that anyone would think of that. This obviously is something I should mention in the book. And then I've kept a humor um, page on my website for years and feel that I've collected some of the finest movement related and music related humor that could be found on the internet. And so I put some of those in there as well. And it's
Mhm.
just there's a lot of appendices and chapters on just all kinds of different things that I think are interesting to people who dance.
Very nice. One thing was coming up for me as you were talking, going back to the point of taking notes and how the idea of the book started. So obviously, what I do, I'm a scientist, so taking notes is really important. And so I can relate to that at any time I want to remember something. I find myself always going back home or wherever I am and taking notes of it so I don't forget it. Do you still have your wristband with the
Yeah.
move? So for those who don't know, the moves in a rueda in a circle, they have to be called out, and the timing of that has to be pretty good so that everybody's on beat. And I remember Barbara having this wristband with the moves that needed to be called in the sequence that they needed to be called. And I always said, oh, if I was teaching this class, I would have to do that as well. It's just such a nice way to kind of remember what you need to call. And
When you're performing, as anyone who's performed knows, there are things that come up that you didn't count on and that
that's right.
crowd your mind. There's a little indentation in the floor, and you want to make sure
Hmm.
you don't trip on it. So you're watching to make sure where your foot's going in relation to that. You see an X in the audience, and you're a little bit flustered. You know, Many things. The music can be a slightly different tempo than what you had practiced to, if a DJ's playing it somehow, or whatever it may be, that kind of takes your attention. And so I did that because even if I thought I wouldn't have too much trouble remembering, I felt more secure if I had a backup. And I did have people telling me if I was calling and they noticed from on stage I was looking down, said, "Why were you looking at your watch from time to
That's
time
right.
during the performance?" Then I knew I looked too obviously.
So one of the things in the book that I really enjoyed was the chapter called "The Synchrony and the Ecstasy: The Health Benefits of Dancing." And so I just wanted to elaborate a little bit on that. You mentioned research on the health benefits of dancing, particularly emotional well-being and building new friendships, which is a topic that I'm always passionate about. And I thought this was particularly important in light of, the loneliness epidemic. I think you mentioned what we all went through during COVID, but even after that, and how important dancing can be, as a healing element.
I thought that I had just been very lucky to be teaching a group that was so friendly and sociable. I could see everybody became friends. On Fridays, the emails would swirl. Where are we dancing? People started helping
Mhm.
each other get jobs. People started rooming together, dating. And I just thought, what incredible fortune I have to be teaching capable dancers who are also so pro-social.
Mhm.
And in time, I came to see that there is not a Rueda group that I've ever come across that doesn't have this kind of warmth and connection and friendship develop among the dancers. I mean, it's extraordinary. There are many other dances that create friendships, but not the way that I saw.
Mhm.
And so I started to kind of read up about this, and there's a phenomenon called muscular bonding, which happens when people dance in synchrony. And so
Mhm.
we have a whole group, unlike a class that's doing a one-on-one form of partnership dancing. We have a whole group dancing together, which consists of a number of couples. So you get the coupledom and you get the group
The group feeling
aspect,
to it. So yeah.
and also a little bit like programs where you're trying to do team building. They have to all get over a wall and they don't win until everybody's over. So everybody has to think about how to help everybody else and make sure
Yep.
everybody gets over the wall.
Mhm.
This is the same kind of thing. Anybody who's lost and doesn't move through the
Mhm.
sequence slows up the whole circle. So everyone has an interest in helping out anyone who's having difficulty or a little behind the beat or
Yep.
whatever. So it really fosters a group spirit.
From the military perspective too, because in the military there's that sense of camaraderie and bonding that happens, and it's just a special feeling that only the people that have been in the military really understand. And I think it comes from the same thing is, we
Exactly.
march together, and there's so many activities that are done in synchrony, so that resonates what you're saying with me.
Well, more than that, Nancy, that's how this whole theory began. The first person who proposed it was a gentleman by the name of O'Neill. And again, this is in the book. And he based this on his marching drills in the military. He said he felt, if I remember his words, a sense of profound elation and of being at one with others, and that it was so strong, and it only happened after a lot of drilling in synchrony with the other soldiers. And clearly that's done. It's good in the military. Your life depends on the actions of others
Right.
for people to trust and care about each other. So it works well, and adapted to dance, in a group dance in particular. It's really a very remarkable phenomenon, and it's true. I think you have to have experienced it to really fully understand. You get some element of that in one-on-one classes too, but I think in Rueda it's more stronger feeling.
Mhm.
And research has shown that you can get some of this just by walking in step with other people. When I'm walking with a friend I like a lot, I try and match their rhythm because
Gotcha.
it creates a feeling of connection.
Interesting. Very interesting
Yeah,
stuff.
don't tell. Just kidding.
So we're talking about this sense of elation that comes from sharing moves, dancing in synchrony, that helps us build relationships, etc. I remember being a part of the Danceintime group. I think I came through maybe around 2008, the early 2000s for sure. And I was just amazed about just about the community that builds around teams such as the one that you led. We had activities, we had events, we had performances, but outside of that, the interaction when we were not on the dance floor, and we were not performing, was still there. And to be honest with you, I think I was telling you this morning, I was speaking to one of my friends who I met in a Danceintime class, and who is a fellow Rueda instructor, Mr. Cedric Teamer. And that connection has been there for over 20 years now. And our friendship began just learning the moves that you were teaching us in a Rueda class.
Right.
So, do you have a favorite story? I know that's kind of hard for you, probably. You have so many over the last 20 years, just teaching and performing with Danceintime. Is there anything that comes to mind that would be worth mentioning as a favorite story of yours?
Well, I have a number of them. One of the first performances that we ever did was with Ron Rios, who I think you know.
Okay.
He joined the Danceintime group, learned moves with us. The gentleman that I was teaching with at the time, whose name was Gary, and myself and Ron and another lady performed as a two-couple Rueda. We did a nice performance, had some very advanced moves and so on, and Gary was calling. And afterwards, I asked him, because his family had come down, they'd never seen him dance, which amazed
Okay.
me. And I asked him, well, what did they think? He said, well, my mom said the dancing was wonderful, but she asked, why was the other guy yelling at me the whole time?
So for those who don't know, so can we describe Rueda dancing a little bit and the calling that happens during the dance?
Yes. So one person has to say what moves are being done. It's noisy and there's music, so you have to yell over that. And some of the moves have hand signals as well, but many do not, particularly the advanced ones
Mhm.
don't. So you've got to make sure that's clear because it can be a source of error.
So we're coming up to the end, and I just want to ask you a couple of more things. So if Barbara, if anybody's hesitant to try dancing, what would you say to them to encourage them?
I would say no one comes out of the womb knowing dance moves and stepping in a rhythm. Everyone had to learn. It's just a matter of practice.
Mhm.
And it's something, if you can walk and you're in reasonable health, anyone can do. And if it takes you longer to get there, it's fun. The practice is fun. So what difference does that make? In the end, once you know something, you know it. You can really learn anything you want to learn.
Yeah.
It's a question of how much time you want to put in. That's
Yeah.
my firm belief.
Yeah, and adding on to that, we were talking about some of the benefits of dancing in general, improve well-being. I mean, there's even physical health benefits by, just constant movement, depending on how many times a week, building new relationships. I can go on and on. I know for myself, when I found dancing, it just improved my life so much more. Before that, and I think I was mentioning that to you, I was just a busy professional, just focusing on my family, going about my life. And I just feel like dancing just really enriched my life in so many different ways. And so I definitely encourage people to try dancing.
Yes.
I want to talk about where you can find the books, Salsa Dancing and Brother the Casino Guidebook. And can you tell us where people can find this book, Barbara?
Sure. So if you type in Barbara Bernstein's Salsa book into Amazon, it'll come up. If you go to danceintime.com, which is my dance website where you can find out about classes in the DMV area and so on, you can find links on my website that get you to the Amazon link. So there's a variety of ways.
Very nice. Any final thoughts or messages you'd like to share?
Well, Nancy, I want to tell you how much I appreciate you doing this. I have always appreciated everything you've done for Danceintime as well.
No, it goes back to you. Thank you so much, Barbara. I think I mentioned at the beginning, even though I was aware of salsa dancing in general, I think opened up a whole new world for me that I was not aware of. And so many good things came out of that. My first Congress, so many friends, so many events that we attended, activities that we participated on. And I really, when I think back of especially women, who are doing this for as long as you have, and who has done it successfully for such a long time, train students, just build community, and infuse your passion and your love. You definitely are at the top of the list. So it's my pleasure to have you here today. And please check out Salsa Dancing in Rueda de Casino Guidebook by Barbara Bernstein. You can find it on Amazon. She also mentioned the website where you can find this. And remember
Right.
that dancing is so much fun. Go ahead, Barbara.
One more thing I forgot to mention, it's available in digital form,
Mhm.
paperback, and hardback. The printed versions, there's a way to get into a page on my website. You need some information in the book for that. And then all of the links in my book, which there are hundreds of, are organized in order by the pages they are in the book so that you don't have to type in a lot of links, so you can see a lot of videos, even if you get the hardback or paperback copies. But thank you so much. This has been really fun. Thank you for
Very nice.
doing
Very
this.
nice. I just want to leave everybody with the last statement is dancing is not just for fun. It can be a life changer. It can bring more joy, deeper connections, and a healthier you. So that's it for me. Thank you so much, Barbara. I'll send you much love from New York and a
Thank you.
big hug.
Thank you. Thank
Good
you.
luck.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Cante conmigo una canción bajo la luna. Y en mi corazón quedó su pobre corazón quemado. Traje mi maleta a un amigo fiel. Traje el corazón de una mujer. Y en mi corazón quedó todo mi amor y mi querer. Y si estoy loco en el presente, en el futuro por ti, me volveré loco también.
Nancy. Thank you so much, Barbara, for all that you do for our community, all the dancers that have come through you.
Bond, glad I caught you on the phone. A beautiful but deadly female spy has stolen government secrets. She keeps them on a flash drive on her person, but she's always surrounded by bodyguards, except when she performs with her salsa team. You must dance with the team and steal back this flash drive. They are doing a salsa Rueda routine that includes steps from other dance styles. Good luck, Bond.